This story may shock some of you, and for others, it may completely change the way you see certain things. That is why I want to make this clear before we begin. What you are about to hear is a true story with devastating consequences, and with every passing minute, things will only get worse. On the night of April 25, 1990, in the late hours, two people happened to notice someone lying by the side of the road. It was a young woman. They realized that a car had hit her and run over her. The young woman was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. At the hospital, a 47-year-old man named Clarence arrived. He said that the young woman's name was Tonya Hughes, that she worked as a dancer at a club, and that she had a son named Michael. Tonya, who was only 21 years old, did not survive the accident and lost her life. When two of her fellow dancers tried to reach Tonya's family by looking them up in the phone book to inform them of her death, a woman answered the phone and said, "Tonya died when she was just a baby." So if Tonya Hughes had actually died long ago, then who was this young woman who had just died? And who killed her, and why? Subscribe before the story begins. In 1989, Tonya was living in Konya. She had graduated from university, yet for reasons no one could explain, she had started working at a strip club. She quickly formed close bonds with her coworkers. Tonya also had a child named Michael, but she had not yet introduced her friends to her husband. A short time later, they finally met him, Clarence. Yes, the 47-year-old man who came to the hospital was her husband, and Michael was his child. For Tonya, Michael was the most precious thing in the world, her only reason to live. Her husband, however, was the complete opposite, cold and indifferent. Tonya was never allowed to go anywhere without him. One day, one of her coworkers noticed bruises and marks on Tonya's body in the locker room. It was obvious she was being abused. Tonya claimed she had fallen, but over time, her friends began to learn more about what she was really going through. One day, Tonya told a coworker, "Clarence wants me to sign a life insurance policy. He's already having the paperwork prepared." It wasn't hard to see that Tonya's life was in danger. When Tonya realized what was happening, she wanted to escape. But Clarence had thought of that too. He kept her son locked away and threatened to kill him if she tried to run. The only thing Clarence cared about was money. He was the one who forced Tonya to work at the club to earn more. As the days passed, the violence escalated, and Tonya was forced to submit to Clarence's sick demands. On the evening of April 25, 1990, Clarence called one of Tonya's coworkers and said that she had been hit by a car on the highway. As I said, this was not something a person who didn't care at all would do. If he truly didn't care about Tonya, why would he bother informing her friends? There were other strange details as well. Tonya suddenly leaving the city without telling one of her closest friends was highly unusual. The accident itself was suspicious from the beginning. There were scratch marks and nail impressions on Tonya's body, signs of a struggle. She had suffered a severe head injury. It is believed that, in order to make it look like an accident, he first tried to reconcile with her. During that confrontation, a fight likely broke out. Her mouth was possibly covered, she was restrained, and only after that was she struck by a car, or perhaps even deliberately run over. All of her friends believed that Clarence was responsible. Just months earlier, he had taken out a life insurance policy on Tonya. Tonya passed away 5 days after the incident, on April 30th. Her son Michael was first placed in foster care. Later, a family applied to adopt him, and Michael was given a new home. He finally had a family. But Clarence was not going to let go. Although Michael meant nothing to him emotionally, Clarence did everything he could to get him back. Or at least to be allowed to see him on certain days. The court ruled that the father could have visitation rights. Michael was terrified of him. He hated him and believed he was a bad man, and everyone around him thought the same. After a while, the court ordered a DNA test to determine whether Michael was truly Clarence's son. The result was unexpected, the DNA test came back negative. Michael was not Clarence's child. From that moment on, Clarence would no longer be allowed to see him. Years later, in 1994, Clarence went to the school Michael was attending. At gunpoint, he abducted him. Before disappearing, he tied the school principal to a tree and left him there. Michael had been kidnapped. Clarence was being searched for everywhere. During the investigation, the FBI uncovered documents showing that he had previously attempted to collect money from the life insurance policy taken out on his wife. However, the name on the documents was different, Dufresne Dillon Ollard. That was his real name. He had used fake names and false identities many times before. As investigators dug deeper, the case became even darker. His criminal record revealed that he had served time in prison. In 1962, he had kidnapped a young girl. He had committed multiple bank robberies and, in 1973, was arrested while assaulting a woman. He was taken into custody but later released on bail. He never appeared in court again and had been wanted for the past 17 years. Little Michael was believed to be with him, and no one knew where they were. After reviewing his criminal past, authorities became convinced that Tonya had been murdered by him. When police spoke to Tonya's former school friends to gather more information, they were faced with another shocking discovery. The woman they knew as Tonya was registered in school records and graduation documents under a completely different name. So what was really going on here? According to her school friends, Marshall was a well-liked person, warm, friendly, and always smiling. She graduated with high honors and also earned a scholarship to study in Bursa. Because she had won a scholarship, her father even published a full-page congratulatory announcement on graduation day. However, the photograph used in that announcement was not exactly appropriate for a young woman about to start university. It was overly sexualized. Some time later, she told a close friend in the city that she was pregnant, that she wanted to give birth to the baby, and that she planned to give the child up for adoption. After hearing this, her father decided not to send her to university. Instead, the family moved to another city. When they arrived, both of them changed their names. Marshall took the name Tonya, and her father took the name Clarence. After adopting these new identities, the two of them got married. While investigators were interviewing Floyd's former neighbors, they were shown an old photograph from the 1970s. In the picture, Floyd is seen standing next to a girl who appears to be 4 or 5 years old. According to the neighbors, that girl was Marshall. In other words, this man had married his own daughter. Behavioral science experts stated that the expression in the young girl's eyes in that photograph suggested that the abuse had already begun at that time. As investigators continued to dig into Floyd's past, they discovered that he had been in prison between 1963 and 1972. Marshall, however, was born in 1969, meaning she could not biologically be his daughter. It was most likely that he had abducted her. Just as you might expect, Marshall was not her real name either. So who was this young woman really? At the end of 1994, Franklin Floyd was arrested while attempting to board a bus traveling from Atlanta to Kentucky. He had purchased a one-way ticket, and Michael was not with him. What had happened?